Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order and begin with public comment. Let's see. This item is reserved for persons desiring to address the committee on any matter not on the agenda. Members of the public who wish to address the committee on any item not listed on the agenda should complete a request to speak form and place it in the tray near the podium. And I will call individuals in turn, and I think, Supervisor Wasserman, we are on the standard 2 minutes for comment?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Depend.
No, just 2 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to call a group of you, if you don't mind, to come and line up, and we will begin comments with Stephen James, followed by Susan Bassey, Gerald Hunt, Ron Davis, Christine Clifford, and Ron Hansen.
Misconduct. But today I want to talk about jury service because I've lived in Santa Clara County for almost 30 years this year, and I've never sat on a jury. The first time I was called, my children were too young and I was excused. So this year I got to serve on the jury and do my civic duty. And I got to see one end of the criminal justice system that I have not yet seen, jury selection. And when I went to jury selection, I got to see where we park, how jurors are treated. I got the announcements of what we're told. I'm told that if your company doesn't pay for you, you get a whole whopping $15 a day to serve on a jury. When I drew my jury, it was for a drunk driving case, and I sat all day. And the jury was selected, and ultimately, I was chosen to be interviewed for the alternate juror position. The district attorney, Sonia Arndt, and Mr. Rosen is aware of this because I've sent him an email about it, knew that his office was prosecuting me. And she didn't say anything. And I could tell she knew because she's a good prosecutor. She's smooth, she's good looking, she works the room well, she knows the jurors, she's connecting with the jurors, and she's going to get a conviction at all costs. The very culture that Mr. Rosen has trained her to do. But Mr. Rosen forgot to train her what to do when someone the office is prosecuting is called for jury service. Then, after they had me divulge all kinds of information, along with all the other people who had to talk about if they had been victims of crimes, if they had been arrested, or everything else, I got taken into the judge's chambers. I have personally spent 200 hearings in this county for my divorce case, and I've never been in a judge's chambers. But Mr. Rosen's deputy DA and the criminal defense attorney, Mr. Lynn, who was actually very good and realized that they were violating my rights by asking about a pending criminal case and a federal case in chambers with no court reporter, he spoke up and said, shouldn't her attorney be here? Today in the paper, we've learned that a woman has been raped, and Mr. Rosen's office did nothing. The same day I was serving jury duty, I saw Jim DeMatris. And Jim DeMatris and I talked about the San Jose police officers showing him things that I have said online. And Mr. Rosen, your DA adamantly defended things I have said about you in public comment and everything else. I do believe you're stealing taxpayer money, failing victims, ignoring rape victims, ignoring victims of sexual assault and domestic violence. And I believe there is going to be a very large taxpayer lawsuit against this county that you will be responsible for. Thank you.
Thank you. An error on our end. I had said 2 minutes for the comments. It was set at 3 minutes, so in the interest of public fairness, we will keep the time at 3 minutes for the remainder of public comment. Come on up, sir.
My name is Ron Davis. I'm here representing the South Bay Progressive Alliance, in particular the Public Banking Action Team of the Progressive Alliance. And we've been working on a public banking initiative for about a year. I've been with them for about 6 months, and last fall I had the opportunity to meet with the advisory commission on consumer affairs twice, once in August and once in October. And as a result of those meetings, they were very favorably impressed with the idea of exploring that possibility for the county. And so they unanimously passed a resolution requesting that the board consider the public banking issue in 2 ways. One, by supporting a legislative effort in Sacramento that is directed towards facilitating the creation of public banks in this state. And the second item was a presentation to the board of our ideas about how a public bank project might be set up to facilitate rational evolution of the creation of such a bank. And so my purpose here today is to alert you to four documents that we'd like to submit in support of this resolution. 2 of them I have with me here in hard copy. I can make them available electronically as well. And the first of those is a document explaining why create a public bank in Santa Clara County, giving the rationale in terms of what it is, how it works, and what the benefits would be. The second document is a list of benefits of setting up a public bank in the county, rather long list, and an example calculation of potential financial savings to the county as a result of being able to borrow money from the bank instead of issuing bonds, and saving on interest and fees. So those I can leave today if that's appropriate, or supply electronically. Now the other 2 items I just mentioned quickly. It happens that San Francisco has just approved, the Board of Supervisors, well, first of all, San Francisco has had a task force evaluating the feasibility of a public bank in San Francisco for a year. And they've completed that first phase of development and are all in favor of it now. And they have submitted a resolution to the state legislature in relation to this legislation that needs to be passed. We have that resolution and are in the process of modifying it for use down here. That will be available soon. And of course, you folks would do your own magic on that. And then the fourth, okay, there's a 4th item on the plan.
Thank you very much, sir. If you've got materials to leave with the clerk, you're welcome to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Christine Clifford. I've lived in this valley since I was 3, when it was mainly orchards, and an Eichler in Palo Alto cost $10,000. I'm a retired special education teacher. I work with PACT, People Acting in Community Together, and Silicon Valley Debug. I had the privilege of serving on the Blue Ribbon Commission to study custody operations after the murder of Michael Tyree by guards in our jail, and currently serve on the Reentry Network. I also have a loved one who has been incarcerated in the county jail for over 5.5 years awaiting trial. PACT has over 30,000 members in our valley from various churches, synagogues, and other places of worship, and it has been active in jail reform and police issues. Silicon Valley Debug represents hundreds of families of the incarcerated in our area and assists them in navigating the legal systems, the jails, and our courts. They currently have nationwide hubs. Both PACT and Debug participate in ongoing collaborative meetings with other agencies who have interest in jail reform, such as the Law Foundation of Silicon Valley, Bill Wilson Center, NAMI, and the Jail Chaplaincy. We found these meetings vital in understanding how our jails and our legal system impact the detainees and their families, and in providing a voice to those concerns. Although we previously enjoyed regular meetings with the Sheriff's Administration regarding our jails, they have unfortunately been able to schedule a meeting with this coalition for the past 5 months. However, I'm confident these meetings can reconvene soon. As we all know, they promote clear, transparent communication between the Sheriff's Department and all interested stakeholders. Hopefully, this collaborative effort can assist in solving issues and misunderstandings that may instead escalate into negative outcomes such as hunger strikes or even lawsuits, something none of us want. In the meantime, it's my understanding that this group will now be more heavily involved with the review of jail-related reforms and concerns rather than the FGOC. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for your work and to offer the input and support of the community groups, families, and detainees impacted by incarceration in our valley. We all look forward to continuing to represent these groups and to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, supervisors and committee members. I'm Ron Hansen. I'm also affiliated with PACT, People Acting in Community Together. Today, I feel a little bit like Tantalus. He was that poor soul in Greek mythology who, although he stood in the midst of a pool of water, the water would recede and remain just out of touch whenever he reached down for a drink to quench his thirst. This is how I feel about the county's quest for tablets for our jail detainees. In the minutes of the meeting of the Inmate Welfare Fund Committee for October 2015, we read, quote, 500 tablets were part of the new GTL contract and would be divided equally between the main jail and Elmwood, close quote. 6 months later, in the May 2016 meeting of that same committee, the attendees were told that the program was on schedule and had a, quote, go-live date of June 2016. Alas, GTL never delivered a single tablet, and in October 2016, a year after the 500 tablet promise, the county terminated the agreement. A full year later, in November of 2017, an RFP was issued for tablets in a combined sheriff and procurement effort. Ever the optimist, I took the RFP's schedule of events at face value, noting that the final milestone of the schedule, the contract commencement, would happen by May 2018. That was 8 months ago. Today, there are still no tablets because apparently a contract has yet to be signed. In addition, the status of the wiring and the other wireless infrastructure installation is really very hazy. In some, there is still no go-live date. There is unanimous agreement about the positive benefits of tablets to inmates, staff, and the institution itself. And yet, putting a tablet in the hands of just one inmate has so far taken nearly 3.5 years, with the completion date that continually recedes just as it gets close. I urge whatever influence you on this committee may have, please raise the priority and urgency of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Stephen James? And Scott Largent.
Sorry about that. I haul all my stuff up here these days. We had a little mishap. You can go ahead, ma'am. We had a little mishap with my cell phone disappearing here one time. And then, strangely enough, the following day, somebody used a Cellbrite phone extractor and took all my data off the phone. Since my phone was programmed to actually let me know when things like that happen and people access my account. That's really strange. Maybe Jeff Rosen can let me know where my phone's at. I bring all this stuff in here to explain stories about different people, myself, stuff I've run into, problems. I don't have to come in here to tell my story anymore. I don't have to tell other people's story at a podium, and I don't have to cram it all into a mailbox, like, stuffing a big rig into a mailbox. I don't have to do this anymore. I have quite an audience online right now on YouTube, and I've created my own support group of people that this man over here cannot dismantle. You can't take my friends away, Jeff. You can't incarcerate them. You can't throw them in jail. You can't run them through the legal system. And you can't keep my support group away from me. So you failed at that. I have right here all of Victorious' appellate briefs right here. This is really powerful information right here. And I've told everybody I'm an open book. You are all more than welcome to look at anything I have. And especially you, Susan, since you're new now here, this is all accessible by you. You can call me up on the phone and I will bring everything to your office and show you what I have talked about for 3 years. And what I'd like to have happen is don't drink the Kool-Aid they're going to try to feed you. Okay, they really are. I'm somebody with no criminal record. I've been sober for 3 years. And my friends have just gotten abused. These are activists that should have never been treated this way. Sylvia Perez, this right here shows what your attorneys were doing. Okay, they were committing judicial, I believe it's misconduct or what. This is horrible. Sharkey, he's one of the shadiest ones of all, and you worked with him at the public defender's office for a long time. These two briefs right here show what he did to Victorious to set him up. And every time they'd leave that courtroom, they'd walk down the hall and get on their phone with Sylvia Perez. You played puppet with these people. It's obvious what you did. Shame on you. This is not okay. The system is rigged. And this shows the proof for all of you to participate and see what the IDO does to scam people on their civil rights. It's right here. And more of this is going online. And for me to beg for a legal defense, to beg to exercise my First Amendment rights, you left me high and dry, Sylvia Perez, and so did you, Molly. Okay? I had to go break the law right here to get a legal defense. You realize this? This is Helen Williams' injunction, or whatever it's called, saying that I can't protest around here anywhere. They were trying to do it the entire city of San Jose. I should have had legal representation. And you know what? Now they're rigging the case, they're rigging the court appearances, and they're just going to throw me through the mud right here. But I had to break the law to get an attorney. That's just pathetic here. I need a legal defense. Let's start stepping up to the plate here. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any additional public comments. Thank you. Before I move to, I'm sorry? Oh, I'm so sorry.
What's that?
I didn't see you, Mr. James. My apologies.
Oh, hi, I'm Steve James. Did everyone get my submission?
Not yet.
They say that President Trump has a hard time reading complicated reports and whatnot, and better understands pictures. So I've kept the text in my submission here to a minimum, and I've tried to use pictures as much as possible. Not that you're like President Trump, but anyways, I'm an investigative reporter, and I've been for a couple years investigating the court system here in Santa Clara Valley. I also grew up here, and when it was just orchards. Anyways, I just want to go over this real quick. There's some news clips here for you. On the first page, it says, jury finds George's lawyer litigation conduct amounted to civil racketeering violation. That is pretty much analogous to an attorney here that is in your family court system named Brad Baugh, who literally has been running what my training experience indicates is a racketeering enterprise for like 30 years. And he's had complaints filed with the district attorney's office. And in fact, I attempted to submit additional information of what I believe is criminal conduct by Mr. Baugh, and I was just blown off and given a boilerplate direction to go take it to a law enforcement agency. But this is about risk management, also what I'm talking about. This is a paper trail. My submission is a paper trail. The video here is a paper trail. Susan Bassey and Scott Largent download these videos every time after they speak and save them for the internet. I've met them. We're all three working separately and independently, but we keep crossing paths. On the second page is some information about me and a link to my work online. And I want to talk about the copy policy, which is at the courthouse. They charge 50 cents a page. There's currently a federal case that was just in the news yesterday where they filed an amicus brief in a case challenging the PACER fees, the federal court fees, which are 10 cents a page, and that's considered to be preposterous according to the New York Times, yet they're somehow getting away at 50 cents a page here. Also, the prosecution of Susan Bassey, let's see on page 3 here, you can see that in 2017, I'm very familiar with her criminal case. I've seen the videos. She was obviously working as a reporter, videotaping the police, and that was it. And then you can look the rest of my stuff here later, but it's all, if I had more time, I could tell you how all of this ties into what's going on in the Santa Clara County court system. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we've heard all of the public comments, correct? Thank you. Before I move on to item number 3, I want to just take a couple of minutes as a new supervisor and new chair of this committee to introduce myself to all of you. I've met most, but not all, and to share some thoughts about this committee. And I should start by just saying that I really am thrilled to be serving as the chair for the Public Safety and Justice Committee. And I want to thank Vice Chair Mike Wasserman for his and his dedicated staff's help in transitioning me into this new role. It's been a pleasure already working with you, and I feel confident that I might speak for both of us in saying that we're excited for the work that is to come. The tone that I want to set for our work together is one that takes the charge of this committee to heart. Each of us here on the dais serves two essential functions for the residents of our county. The first is public safety. Safety is the primary responsibility of government, and the citizens of Santa Clara County look to each of us in our individual capacities to maintain a standard of public safety that is the envy of our region, state, and nation. The second function is justice, and the justness by which we treat our fellow residents, especially in pursuit of public safety, is ultimately how we will be judged. And it's this balance we should always strive for. Protecting our most vulnerable communities, our children and families, those who touch the systems that we administer, while also keeping Santa Clara County safe. This is a difficult but also critical responsibility, and I have the highest belief that together we can achieve it. It's the women and men of our respective departments and administrations that do this work every day. They're out in our communities working toward these goals, and they rely on us to do our job, to work together to maintain the strictest oversight of the departments that they serve. In the past, many functions that appropriately fell under the public safety and justice umbrella have not come before this committee, and it's my sincere intention to see us take a more active role in the issues that impact public safety and justice. The uniqueness of this committee is not lost on me. Rarely do we have a collective group of public safety and justice professionals gathered together in one place, working to one purpose. And I believe that we should utilize that opportunity and ensure that Public Safety and Justice Committee does its due diligence in oversight and takes seriously our power of inquiry to serve our dual purposes. And to that end, I intend to maximize our committee's time around conversations with timely purpose and action verbs attached to them. What we discuss here should be in the best interest of the county and should have actionable goals in mind. I will do my best in collaboration with our Vice Chair to strike that tone for this new term. I look forward to working with all of you to achieve the highest levels of public safety and justice for the citizens of Santa Clara County. And with that, let's get to work. Item number 3 is approval of the consent calendar and changes to the committee's agenda. And I have 2 requests here. I'd like to move, with your consent, Supervisor Wasserman, to move item number 4 to the consent calendar, and to take item 8 out of order because at least one of our speakers needs to leave early and would like to participate in the presentation.
Thank you. With that said, I'll make the motion to approve consent calendar 9 and 10 and add item 4 onto it. Second.
Second.
Yep.
We don't need to vote, right?
We don't. We're there.
Okay.
It's unanimous.
Got it. Okay.
Item 5. Are you doing 8? Yep.
Okay, so we're going to move right to item 8 and then take the remainder of the items in order. We've got one public comment, one second, on item 8, and that's Susan Bassey, and agenda items have 2 minutes for public comment. We are a work in progress here.
I'm going to talk about item 8, which is the women's policy issue and related to the office.
Excuse me,
Just 1 minute.
Ms. Bass, just a minute. We're just getting used to each other here, Nancy, so if you can start the timer. And Ms. Bassey, you'll have 2 minutes. You've submitted a card on consent, and consent items are numbers 4, 9, and 10. So if you wish to speak to those items now, you've got 2 minutes for that, and then we'll be coming to number 8.
I was prepared to talk to number 8, so hold on, and I will go back to my agenda before you start the clock and reorganize.
if you still wish to speak.
I'm sorry, could you please tell me, 4,
4, 9, and 10
9?
are on
And 10.
consent. You submitted a card for that.
I'm only going to speak on 10, and I'm going to speak very briefly on 10. And on 10, I'd just like to say that what has been occurring with the cancellations of these public safety and justice meetings over the last several months is really an abomination of our democratic process. And Scott Largent has been documenting the failures to make quorum and the cancellations of the meetings. There have been substantial Brown Act violations that have been reported to you, Jeff Smith, and to James Williams' office through the county whistleblower program. You guys have done nothing. Your job when you're doing Brown Act violations is to notify the appropriate people, and it is a civil and criminal matter to be prosecuted by Jeff Rosen's office, who is usually asleep unless somehow it serves his purpose for his political campaigns. Brown Act violations are serious. You canceling these meetings regularly, as well as what you've done to the Domestic Violence Committee and council meetings, is really a sham to our local government. So I just would like that on the record. I'd like you to consider how you're managing the committees of all the people that you appoint, how you're restricting information, and how you're repeatedly violating Brown Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to bring you back out of order to speak on item 8.
I'm going to speak on the women's policies issues in this county. And women's policies are non-existent. Susan Ellenberg, you used to be on the Women's Policy Committee, and the status of women in this county is despicable. I'm going to talk about the woman who was raped that is in the paper. And by the way, Jeff Rosen, if you haven't looked, the updates are calling for your recall for how you handled that woman. You're in charge of victim services, and you've continued to fail women, primarily the women who are victims in this county of sexual assault, rape, and domestic violence. I also have heard from a woman who claimed that she was raped while she was in our jails, and Mr. Rosen's office did everything to keep that from coming out. You've got to start paying attention. Mr. Rosen supervised a claims manager who was sexually assaulting and engaged with an improper sexual relationship with a subordinate officer. They covered it up. They hired Walter Hammond for the officer, and the county settled it up quietly and neatly. Mr. Rosen, your office is a sham. You have deputy DAs who are sexually harassing and stalking people online to get dates. They're literally trying to date women, and I have tried to report that, and Terry Hammond is non-existent. What she did to the rape victim in San Martin is despicable. Mr. Rosen, you ran on a campaign for Emily Doe, and as soon as that switched over to a recall on Persky, you switched hats, you changed teams. You can't be on both teams, Mr. Rosen. You can't prosecute and protect victims. You're failing at that. The women in this county are suffering because the officers are being trained and taught to go out and deal with rape, sexual assault, and domestic violence, and our courts, Judge Ryan, are letting them down. They're not doing their job. We have biased judges making decisions that they shouldn't be making. They're doing things in their private lives, and the county's presiding judges are ignoring complaints about these judges. It's time to pay attention to what's going on. It's time to speak up. And Susan Ellenberg, remember why you were elected, and don't drink the Kool-Aid, as Scott Largent says.
Thank you. Scott Largent.
Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Largent. I've been to probably 6, maybe 7 of the Office of Women's Policy meetings. The gals there were super friendly. I mean, they were very welcoming. We did make quorum most of the time at those, so it wasn't as bad as the Domestic Violence Council. I do understand that the Domestic Violence Council is operated out of the Office of Women's Policy. Remember, the Domestic Violence Council has no dedicated staff. It has no website. It all kind of piggybacks off of the Office of Women's Policy. I just don't think there's enough people, enough money. I mean, I just don't think they're just ran properly. And I mean, no offense to you ladies right here. How is there a way to put the DVC separately from the Office of Women's Policy? Is the attendance is so bad, it's literally 16% for the last 2 years. 16%. They never make quorum. And I've come in here and I throw the ball at the supervisors and I tell you guys it's everybody that you appoint. But how do you fix that? It is failing it's really failing our county. And I went in there to get advice, to figure things out about civil restraining orders. I thought I went to the right place, and I was obviously wrong. So hopefully, I know you guys are now canceling the court systems meetings. I know you're canceling all the ad hoc committees. You just really don't want the public involved with this DVC scam anymore. The DVC, the civil end of things, is a scam to tie people up in court. Most of these people should be criminally prosecuted. If they're beating women, put them through our legal system and throw them in the slammer. It's a game changer for these women. But right now what they do is they drag it out, they shoot the domestic violence restraining order out 6 or 7 months, and they allow these people to feed the system. It's an absolute scam, and I'm really shocked that you guys are canceling all these meetings now. It's very shameful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson Ellenberg, Supervisor Wasserman, members of the committee. My name is Pratima Pandey. I'm the Director for the Office of Women's Policy. And along with me today, I have Lieutenant Rocha Sanchez from the Sheriff's Office and Chairperson Shay Franco-Clausen, who's the chair of our Commission on the Status of Women. I'm going to hand it over now to Chairperson Franco-Clausen. Oh, clearly. There we go.
Oh, am I on? Okay. Hello. Well, thank you very much. We're really excited to present today, and it's been I've been very proud to serve as the chair of the commission as well as the chair of the jail monitoring program for about 4 years. And I have to say, we celebrate the successes that we have because of the great partnership that we have with the Office of Women's Policy and the Sheriff's Department. While sometimes it's not perfect, but we have all agreed to have great communications and come up with solutions to solve problems, and it's very unique, and we're the only county in the state that does this. So I want to talk about some of the successful programs that we've had in our partnership. Is being able to, I established to having the jail monitoring process happen 2 times a month for those who have to work 9 to 5, one on Fridays, and an opportunity for people to serve on the weekends. We're able to have 8 to 12 monitors per session. We have usually an average of 20 active jail monitors that come in and meet with the women. And we've been able to have a library cleanup and provide, I'm sorry, it's weird because, you know, Susan used to be on our committee, so I feel like I'm telling her about the work we did together.
You are.
And so we were able to not just do a voter registration drive, but voter education, and I took part in that as well. I implemented with women throughout the county to have a Mother's Day celebration where we made 500 Mother's Day cards, and working with the Sheriff Department, let us deliver them personally to every single unit, which was very impactful. We were able to get over 200 books donated. We get donations every year for about $1,500 to support our GED program. We offer to different stakeholders yearly tours so people understand the process from booking to being in the facilities and how the collaboration works and how we've made changes. Let's see. And every 3 times a year, we have a new monitoring training. So we can also offer that to college students that are in junior colleges and San Jose State that are going into criminal justice or women's studies to come also participate in it. As the chair of the commission, we do appreciate all the support that the county and the sheriffs and the Office of Women's Policy does, and we really love to continue this wonderful program going forward in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shay. So what I want to do is to take just a few minutes to highlight some of the parts of our jail monitoring report. I'm not going to go over the report, but we're here happy to answer questions. One of the things that I do want to highlight is that we've been successfully able to implement our jail monitoring program on a regular basis, and because of that, we worked with the Sheriff's Office to have our survey, jail monitoring survey, conducted in February of 2018. Without the help of the Sheriff's officers on that particular day, we would not have been able to administer the survey. And I want to stress that the relationship that we have is why you see a report today. The second thing I want to highlight is that in collaboration with the Department of Corrections and the Commission on Status of Women, Office of Women's Policy is proud to report that the women's jail actually has a new classification system, and Lieutenant Rocha Sanchez will talk about that. It would not have happened if we hadn't partnered together, and it's a gender positive response to the work that we've been doing. It's important for us to highlight that so that we know why this partnership works. And the third thing that I want to say is that the survey, and you do have a copy of the survey as part of the materials today, the survey is something that we're hoping to do on a regular basis. We're working with the sheriff's staff to establish a particular schedule along with our CSW monitors. We believe that our partnership gets stronger if we're in the jails on a regular basis and conducting surveys and reporting back to the committee so that we can continue to partner to help the inmates get the dignity they deserve even though they're behind bars. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Rocha Sanchez.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. Like the ladies explained, here is a collaborative effort. It's been a pleasure to work with both. It's a common goal amongst all three of us, all three agencies. Hence, there's been a little bit of rotation amongst management. Nonetheless, we continue to strive and provide additional services for our justice-involved population. Lieutenant Etheridge happened to be retired retired last December of 2017. And then I got assigned to the women's facility in October of last year. Since then, we had a promotion as well. That would be Captain Lay, who then got assigned to the Elmwood facility. Under her is also Administrative Division Commander Lieutenant Gill, who oversees the Elmwood facility. And then I am responsible for the women's facility as well. We also have Assistant Sheriff Taylor, who's sitting out there with you guys as well. He's very supportive of all the efforts that we collaborate with. And we also have a new sergeant assigned just to the new classification system, just for the women's population alone. That really creates a positive reinforcement to what the changes that we're trying to reinforce for the female population as well. Earlier, Patrima mentioned that I would speak about classification, but I'll defer that to Lieutenant Duran, who will be out here shortly, and he can further explain that a little bit more for you. We have implemented performance milestone credits here. I started May of 2018, and we've also introduced 5 keys, and Dr. Marshall is here to speak of that as well, and so is Lieutenant Duran as well. Some of the successes under the Sheriff's Office, we have the W4 group session room that has been completed out of the women's population. We've incorporated relaxation rooms throughout various locations at the women's facility, hence affording them an opportunity to not just use out of cell time, but they can actually go and listen to music and relax. We give them options, hence increasing their out of cell time as well. The project to provide hijabs to the female population is also afforded to all of them. And we collaborate with our chaplaincy for them to coordinate this as well. And we have packed parenting, which is parents and children acting together for our female population to have an opportunity to get contact visitation with their children as well. And I think that is pretty much it.
Oh, yes.
Is someone addressing the next steps?
Yeah.
Page? Okay.
We just wanted to present to say, of course, of all the successes, the partnership, but we would love to continue our monthly monitoring as we work on different processes and procedures to reduce recidivism while, having women's agenda and equity at the front of our lens. Continue to strengthen the relationship between CSW, OWP, and the Office of Sheriff. Continue our voter registration drive in October. Continue book donations so we can give the women a different variety of books, as well as on focus groups with vulnerable communities like, mothers, LGBT, API community, to give them a sense of community and resources.
And with that, we conclude our presentation. We're happy to take any questions if there are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say great job. I just put my newsletter out yesterday and highlighted what your office has done and is doing, and I'm just so very proud of what you've accomplished, and I'm so very excited about the future and going forward. And that newsletter went out and told 60,000 people about what it is that you and the county are doing to promote these actions, and I'm very, very happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you for that great report. I had the pleasure of touring Elmwood Women's, thank you, Lieutenant, recently. And I wanted to mention, since the chair of this committee, Supervisor Ellenberg, really would like to see some more action verbs involved in what we do as a committee. And one thing I'd like to kind of highlight is the need to remove obstacles to visitation for women at Elmwood and their children. There's a beautiful visitation room, but all kinds of problems in getting kids transported out to see their moms, classification related to which moms are eligible. Chief Garnett and I and several other agencies have been partnering with First Five, including with the Department of Corrections, to try and make sure that parents who are incarcerated have linkage to services when they're released and while they're in custody. So that's an area where I think we could do some work in this committee that would be important. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. And if I may, Madam Chair, thank you for that. Our office has been working closely with First Five as well. Quetzal Gomez, our management analyst, is in touch with the First Five crew, and we're also part of the work group. I do want to highlight that the challenges that we are seeing relate to transportation, but also the timing. And I know Lieutenant Rocha Sanchez and I met separately on the timing issue. So we appreciate the concerns that the committee has, and we are actually working towards it. And hopefully we'll have a different report for you next time on that.
Thank you both. I agree with you, Molly, and I would actually up the ante a little bit as well. I would also be interested in seeing diversionary programs for women who have very young children. We know that children experience lasting trauma when they're separated from their mothers, and in many cases we're now creating a new generation of challenges if we don't really work to strengthen those bonds, again, in structured settings that set moms up for success. But I would like to look for opportunities that we might have to divert women from being in custody altogether. There are other, yes.
I wanted to add that I think along with your point about diversion options, the data reflects that there are a large population of women that are in custody are for low-level offenses, violations of probation, and or monetary-related offenses. And so I think the opportunity is there to sort of grab the low-hanging fruit that's there and take action immediately. I think that's something that can and should be done soon.
Good, thank you. And again, I will appreciate that comment and agree with you in thinking, if we're going to dive into this and talk about women, young mothers, a lot of those women who, as you said, are incarcerated on low-level, nonviolent felonies. Many of them are teenagers as well, and we know in particular that incarceration settings for teenage girls and young women creates further trauma and makes it less likely that those women will reintegrate successfully into their communities. And we, on the other hand, have evidence that returning justice-engaged girls and young women to their family homes can be equally traumatizing. So I would be interested in looking at other diversionary options, again, that can provide therapeutic, regulated settings that focus on addressing the root causes of that undesired behavior and equipping young women to make better choices upon disengagement from the system. So I look forward to talking about how we might start to implement some of this. Are there other comments? I want to add my thank you and gratitude to the Office of Women's Policy and the Sheriff's Office and the Commission on the Status of Women for providing this tremendous report and update on the work that you've done. Particularly appreciative of the survey. It was incredibly exhaustive, I think, in the questions that it may be exhausting also, but exhaustive in its scope, and I think that provides a lot of really useful information. And I'm particularly pleased to see the implementation of the gender-based classification system that reflects an understanding that girls and women are often incarcerated for different reasons than men. And certainly as a former member of the commission who advocated for this gendered classification, it's really gratifying to see that it's in place. So I really want to thank you and thank the Sheriff's Office for doing that. I'm pleased to see the 5 recommendations that you have. And I would like to have the Sheriff's Office provide maybe bi-monthly, don't need to be monthly, off-agenda reports on the classification system to let us know how it's working. Is it really, are we seeing any kind of measurable difference? We're seeing fewer women in higher degrees of classification. Are there any negative repercussions for that? Are there more women than engaged in programming? Just to have a sense of validation, I think that the gender-based classification system really works to women's advantages. And with regard to the recommendations 3 through 5, maybe the OWP can work with the Sheriff's Office to develop a plan that shows us objectives and timelines for how to achieve these recommendations and bring back a report. I don't have a specific date in mind. I'm thinking if we can do it before budget season, that really may help us in planning for next year. But overall, I really want to thank you for your work and look forward to pushing some of this ahead.
To that, Supervisor Ellenberg, I will say that the Sheriff's Department is coming to the Commission to report out on the changes that we see together. So I just want to let you know that they they started that conversation to kind of report on the things that they're seeing in advance. So they're thinking along that same way of how do we stay in communication to celebrate our successes and areas of challenge. So just want to let you know that they've been active and going to present that to us. So coming here would be another way to present to you as well.
That would be great, and we can also send someone to the commission meeting to listen to that. Anything else on item 8? No, ma'am. All right, there's no action on that. Okay, so we will go back to our original agenda order and taking item number 5. Quarterly report on training for public safety staff, and I have 3 requests for public comment, which will be each for 2 minutes. Scott Largent, Susan Bassey, and Stephen James.
Thank you. Ready when you are. 2-3 years ago when I first started coming to these committees, some of the completion of these courses through the Sheriff's Department, the numbers just were not looking too good. I would kind of go through there in the back with the book and I'd write them all down and I'd come up here and I'd be like, well, why this, why this, why this? And some of the ones I dug a little more deeper into figuring out why it took so long for them to complete these. So I had to understand it. And what I have seen lately, now with the new numbers that are in the back, is the Sheriff's Department is really stepping up to the plate and getting this stuff done. I'm excited to see that. These numbers are really going up. It's like night and day, and it's good to see that. And you kind of got to praise an institution when they're really getting it right. And you know, I've been a big critic of our Sheriff's Department. I came in here for 2 years throwing the ball, and I do like to see that. I was wondering, with these training courses that we have, when we're going to have one to properly train the sheriff's deputies how to handle who's in charge, so to say. So is the sheriff in charge, or is the judge in charge that gives them marching orders to harass the public? So how do we kind of train these deputies to understand that there's a point where you got to put the brakes on and you've got to talk to your superior, or you've got to go up the chain of the command with Lori Smith, not with some corrupt Santa Clara County thug in a robe that's going to order, deputies, for instance, to come over to your home. Do we have a training course for that right now? Because I think they're abusing their power, and it makes the good men and women of our sheriff's department look really bad when judges like Judge Jeremiah Stupid Scott send them over to your grandparents' house to harass you just for filing what, a complaint? So it's kind of a weird system. Let's get some training on that. Thank you.
I want to talk about training, and I want to talk about training related to domestic violence. And I'm going to convey a story that a sheriff deputy said to me one day in the courthouse. He said to me that he went out on a domestic violence call where it was a family law case, and the dad was insisting that the mom get arrested, and the children were there, and the sheriffs went, and there was a court order. And the deputy said to me that he said to his colleagues, "We're not going to arrest the mom in front of her children." What is going on because of the state and federal funding in our courts related to domestic violence and the financial incentives for a core group of divorce attorneys who are not doing what they are supposed to be doing according to the law, but doing what they should want to do to make more money out of these divorce cases, is really a problem. It's a problem for our law enforcement officers. And our law enforcement officers do not know what to do. They are being trained. They're being trained very well to handle these situations, and we have to trust them. We have to trust their training, and we have to trust their personal experiences, that they get to make those calls on the front lines of domestic violence, not some judge in a remote location who has tons of bias and who's getting kickbacks in private judging assignments when they retire. We cannot do that in our community anymore. There's too much money in Silicon Valley to incentivize domestic violence on paper. This is hurting families. This is ripping them permanently apart, and our children are watching this. We're behaving badly. We're not following the rule of law, and you are not listening. You're allowing judges and Jeff Rosen to criminalize dissent. I have read the police report for Scott Largent for May 1st, 2018. And the fact that the supervisors didn't do anything about that order from Patricia Lucas is despicable. They said they knew people were going to be protesting outside the family court 1 month before the Persky recall, and they'd sent the sheriffs to arrest them. That is criminalizing dissent, and that is illegal.
Picking back up at my handout on page 3, a major victory for the right to record police. It's just an article from The Atlantic talking about a recent court case from 2017. And it says, federal appeals courts covering half of U.S. states have now ruled that Americans have a First Amendment right to videotape encounters with law enforcement. And that's true in California under state law and under federal law. And from what I understand, the Sheriff's Department, that's part of
I just want to interrupt you for a quick second and make sure that you're talking to this specific agenda item on training for sheriffs.
Training, yeah.
Thank you.
The base for it is the right to record the police. That's established, it's beyond dispute, and the training includes that, and usually the police cooperate with that. But you just can't interfere with what they're doing, obviously. So my suggestion on the training is, but within the family courthouse, the presiding judge, Patricia Lucas, apparently was, she thought she was a sovereign citizen, and that federal law didn't apply within her little domain there, because she had Susan Bassey arrested and she had Scott Largent arrested. Susan Bassey was in the process of recording the police in a police encounter with Scott Largent in a common area of the family law courthouse. And she was arrested for that. And there's video of it. She literally tells the sheriff's deputy that I'm doing my job. And I don't blame the deputies. I blame the management of the court, which is, at that time was the presiding judge, Patricia Lucas. Because just like what Susan Bassey just said, we know that, and she's filed orders prohibiting protests in front of the courthouse, which was illegal because it also included the sidewalk area, which is city property. And there's just overreach by the people that manage the courts to try to quelch dissent. And it's unconstitutional, and it should be changed. And the training for the deputies should include how to recognize an invalid order. If a judge tells you to go arrest someone, they should be able to say no to the judge because they've been trained to understand what they can and can't do, no matter what a judge says. Thank you.
That concludes public comment for this portion. Glad to hear the report.
Good afternoon. My name is James Jensen. I'm a captain with the Sheriff's Office. I'm in charge of our training and compliance unit. This is Melanie Jimenez Perez and Captain Christopher Grumbos in charge of our personnel.
Welcome.
I'm going to give you a quick overview of our training unit. We currently have 2 separate academies going. Our correctional academy is 16 weeks. The state standard is only 5 weeks. For our enforcement academy, it's 32 weeks, and the state standard is only 17 weeks. As you can tell in some of the pictures, each academy actually does a community outreach project. It's mandatory. We try to make different community outreach programs per academy, so everybody in the community gets to see the Sheriff's Office out there helping the community. As part of the training unit, we just don't run the academies. We also make sure that all the training curriculum for all our in-service sworn personnel throughout the Sheriff's Office is completed. We want to focus on ensuring that we meet state mandates and also propose jail remediation plans. In this slide are some of the hours that we have to do per state mandate. On the enforcement side or post standards, it's 24 hours every 2 years. And on our correctional side, it's 24 hours every fiscal annual year. The picture also shows our construction of our new emergency vehicle operation course, which is down in Morgan Hill. It should be done within a month or so. It will be open to all law enforcement personnel in this county, and plus the region, which we just got from our post standard. We got a regional training center provider. This slide just goes over what we accomplished during the month of November and December. You can tell we got all of our sworn personnel through our first aid and CPR and completed. Implicit bias for all custody personnel. Enforcement done was the year before. We have LGBTQI completed from all custody. And we have everybody at about 99% of our body-worn camera completed. The 1% are the people that are on long-term leave. This slide is our overall training. It shows the different numbers that we've done throughout. Some of the slides you can tell we have not started the project. We have it currently going on this year, this fiscal year, for our custody and our enforcement the first half of this year also. That concludes our formal presentation. If you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Do you have any comments or questions?
I'll make one comment if I may, Madam Chair. Glad to see your training facility is almost completed. That's great. Congratulations. I look forward to going out there at some point and checking it out for sure. Thank you also for providing the PowerPoint slides in advance. That enables us and my aides to go over them ahead of time and ask any questions. So I appreciate that instead of just presenting them to us at this time where we're not able to digest them all and give some thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would echo that appreciation and thank you for this report. I know I've asked a lot of the Sheriff's Office in this meeting, and it helps me, frankly, to level set and really get some good understanding of the work that you're doing. So thank you for that. I have just a couple of questions about the training. I'm curious to know first, do you use any kind of feedback loop from officers who have gone through the training for continuous improvement purposes or to see what's working particularly well and what might be revamped at all?
Definitely. Every training class, at the end of the training class, the students, which are law enforcement officers, give back evaluations for our instructors and also the materials to make sure that we're up to date and we have good instructors teaching them.
Thank you. And where you note that trainings have been completed, are these one and done, or are there refresher courses, whether it's in the LGBTQI or use of force or suicide prevention? Once people have it, are they done?
That is, it depends. Some of it's ongoing training, where we do it every other year, and other training is once you complete it, it is done and completed. For example, the use of force review update, which you see is completed. That is with our new use of force policy for our custody division, where that is completed. When we do have a refresher or change the use of force policy, there will be a refresher in training.
Is there somewhere in the report that maybe I didn't see that distinguishes which trainings are one-offs and which have refreshers?
Yes, if you look at the first table where we have some red notations, it'll say if it's a 10-hour, if it's a refresher, ongoing, but we can make sure for the next one that they're all updated.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate the report. Anything else? Okay, thank you. This concludes item number 5. Moving on to item number 6. Receiving a report from the Office of the Sheriff relating to academy recruitment and staffing levels.
Good afternoon again. Again, my name is Captain Christopher Grumbos, and I oversee the Personnel Backgrounds and Recruiting Unit. We recruit for all sworn and civilian positions in both the custody and the enforcement bureaus. We work with contracted background investigators and medical clearance personnel, as well as our in-house staff, to ensure a thorough background is completed in a timely manner to all Sheriff's Office personnel. Thank you for the slide. So to ensure the most credible and professional staff for service delivery to our public, the Sheriff's Office conducts a mandatory and comprehensive background and security clearance for all staff prior to being hired. This comprehensive background is in addition to the Department of Justice and FBI clearances, and includes a polygraph examination. This exhaustive background is to determine an individual's personal and professional history, strength of character, trustworthiness, honesty, reliability, discretion, and sound judgment. This extensive background process also ensures candidates are free from conflicting allegiances or that they don't have any potential for coercion once they're entrusted in these positions. So the Sheriff's Office strives to have an agency that reflects our community. Our team does a phenomenal job of getting out into the community to represent our office. At community events, particularly those that are within the community and state colleges. And we're also looking forward to new opportunities. So I'm going to challenge everyone. If you have anything in mind with the county and you're hosting anything, keep us in mind. We'll always send out deputies and have a recruiting table available. So this slide here is part of the Women's Symposium. So we've been holding the annual Women's Symposium since about 2014. And this is held to provide females interested in a law enforcement career with opportunities to talk with current women in the department and for them to try out the physical agility course to increase their comfort with the physical tests required to be hired by the Sheriff's Office. It's a great opportunity, and we've only seen this grow over the years. It takes a little bit of the unknown out of the process, allows them to ask questions and to practice those physical agilities, which isn't always easy, especially if you've never done it before. And this year we are also utilizing Nextdoor, which is a neighborhood social media app, as well as Facebook and Twitter, to reach additional groups. The Office of Women's Policy has also helped us to get the word out, and the county social media prompts with these events and helps us. 70 women were in attendance this last November, and again, it continues to grow. So it's something we'll continue to support. And once we have a date, we'll let the board know so we can reach as many members of our community as possible.
The slide above is the different academy dates with our projected recruits. Those graduation dates will fluctuate for timing regarding holidays and scheduling. We are trying to get as many academies as possible per year on the enforcement side. We run 2 academies a year. On the Cussy side, we're up to 3 different academies a year. There was usually a month to 6 weeks gap. We moved that gap to approximately 2 weeks to 3 weeks in between each academy. We also recruit laterals that go through an abbreviated academy that we can hold either at our academy in Morgan Hill or at the Ritchie Center, which is right across the street.
So on this next slide, I have to apologize. The slide is actually incorrect. So if you would refer back to your report that we provided, that's the actual staffing chart. Apologize for that. So the vacancy report that we use is what we use operationally to ensure full staffing. So prior to each academy starting, we want to ensure that we know how many retirements are planned and how many vacancies exist to attempt to fill any positions at the time of each graduation. And as you look at that, most retirements happen near the end of the calendar year, so that is something that fluctuates, and academy sizes are adjusted based on those retirements. That's going to conclude this presentation, and we're open for questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Wasserman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 questions. At this time, do you have any concerns about filling vacancies going forward?
Fellow agencies?
No, filling vacancies.
Oh, filling vacancies.
I noticed the last couple of years, the amount of people applying, the amount of people graduating, going from one academy, 2 academies, the size of the academies has all increased. Periodically, I hear from various individuals and organizations about our declining more than we're increasing. What does the future look like to you from all your outreach, being in the various cities, San Jose, San Francisco, Morgan Hill, et cetera? I think your outreach has been phenomenal.
That's a great question. So we are in direct competition with a lot of law enforcement agencies out there.
They are in direct competition with us, you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you for that I stand
Sure.
corrected.
Just look on your name tag, County of, yeah, okay.
So when we look at that, we also look at our aging department with regards to 50 years of age, 30 years, coming up on their 30 years. So right now we're seeing a lot of those retirements, and that definitely affects us. So we continue to strive to do these outreaches and add things to our toolbox in order to get the best qualified candidates. Law enforcement backgrounds, as you know, they're some of the hardest backgrounds you can be put through. They take time, and we don't skip any steps in ensuring the best qualified candidates. We do all sorts of events. I mean, this is just a fraction of the events, as you know, and we'll continue to not only do those, but look for other opportunities. We're always open, and I have to challenge everybody that works for the county. We all have families, friends, and loved ones, and they might not have ever thought of a career in law enforcement, whether sworn or civilian. So, again, I'm going to take this opportunity.
Let me cut to the chase. So are you saying that the graduates are keeping pace with those retiring? Are we falling behind? Where are we at? Are we staying even? Do we have 60 going out and 60 coming in? What's happening?
So it's year by year. We're keeping pace, but we also have other things that come up. People that can't get past the academy or fail FTO or JTO. It's a challenge.
Okay, thank you. And my second question, if I may, Madam Chair, thank you. You mentioned as far as opportunities to have a booth, have some deputies. At Marshall Cottle Park, and forgive me if you're there and I didn't notice because there's a lot of tables, a lot of vendors, people on display. Do you currently have a table each year at the annual event at Marshall Cottle Park, to your knowledge?
We will moving forward. Not to my knowledge, but moving forward, we absolutely will.
Great. I'll have my office contact you.
Thank you, sir.
Coordinate dates and times. Because there's
Absolutely.
thousands of people that come to that every year. And I'd love them to hear about the opportunity to work for us.
We'll absolutely love to be there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would just like to say on behalf of the court, I've had the pleasure of working with some of your newer deputies that have gone through your training, as well as your more experienced deputies. You'll never hear me say older. And we really appreciate the training that you are providing them, and I think they are utilizing it and demonstrating it regularly. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge Ryan.
Holly.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, this actually refers back to the training item number 5. It looks like you all are on top of getting really important training done, but one area I noticed was related to mindfulness. Your custody staff appears to be about 95% through the training, but the enforcement side, your numbers are lower, and our office is in the midst of launching a very robust mindfulness program. We've actually been doing mindfulness training within the office and drop-in sessions for the last year, but we're out and about doing Know Your Rights trainings in the community as well, all with an eye toward de-escalation. So I think for your enforcement staff to get that mindfulness training would be great. And I attended a session in my office today at 11:30, so I'm feeling very mindful. Thank you.
So having said that, our enforcement deputies are currently going through their mindfulness training with CIT de-escalation and should be all completed by July.
Thank you. Thank you for this report as well. I'll also rise to your challenge and make a couple of suggestions about places that might be good for recruiting if they aren't already on your radar. Certainly the Career Technical Education, Metro Ed, CTE, high school program. It's a joint powers authority with 6 school districts, ripe with kids, many of whom would like to go right from high school to career. If that's an option, that's a great resource there, as well as Pivotal, that works to help find career placement and job placement for youth exiting the foster care system. Weekly farmers markets are a good way to attract lots of people.
Absolutely.
In a good mood on the weekends. I had just a couple of questions as well. It's clear that you are making a tremendous effort in doing the outreach. How are you measuring the effectiveness? In part to Supervisor Wasserman's question, how many people are you actually building in an effort to fill the staffing positions, and also to help you target better, do more of what's working, spend less time at places that don't result in recruits?
What was that last part, Chairwoman?
How are you measuring the success of the different outreach events so that you can hone in on what's working and pivot away from things that are not working?
So we through social media, we ask for responses. There's no events that aren't worthy of going to. And we have the resources and the staff to send them to that. And I think that it shows in the candidates we're getting in the process and the work that they're doing once they are in the jails and on the street. And we also follow up to find out, how they heard about our department and what guided them. So we're tracking that in backgrounds, and that's how we're weighing what is working and maybe what isn't as well.
Might there be some kind of incentive programs for current officers to bring in their friends or recruits?
So throughout the years, we've gone back and forth, and that is something we're looking at. It's nothing's ever off the table. It's ebbed and flowed through the years, but that's absolutely something we're looking at.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. They're really, I know that from the board side as well, we're eager to see the staffing build up and see less of an overtime burden on the folks that are working very hard there right now.
Absolutely.
Anything else? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 7, Sheriff's report on in-custody programs. And we have one request for public comment, and that's Barbara Hansen.
I want to thank the Sheriff's Department for developing programs and giving you an idea of what's being presented out there. However, I would ask that of you, of you as a committee to ask some deep questions about this. Overall, the program participation is 25%, 33% of women, 25% of men. The report does not delineate where those programs are being held. I would venture to say that likely Elmwood has the larger amount of programs and that the jail does not. But as a committee, I'd ask you to look at a deeper dive into the data. It is commendable on page 4 that there's going to be a goal of 40% over 3 years in programming, but it doesn't give any kind of plan about how that's going to happen. In looking at the Legislative Analyst's Office at what are good programs established by them in December of 2017, it says that research shows that a rehabilitation program generally is effective at reducing recidivism if it possesses 3 key principles. First, they'd be evidence-based. That's true here. And second, the program be evaluated for cost effectiveness. I would say that is missing from this. And that third, that the program should focus on the highest risk and highest need inmates. And if you look in here, generally it's for your low security, some medium security, and very little for high security. So please look at a deeper dive into this data. As usual, it's just an overview and it doesn't get to where our real issues are. Let me say, too, that if you're going to look at the survey for what kind of satisfaction there is in programs, remember that the definition for what your program is was not asked. For many of the detainees, program meant getting out and taking a shower and making a phone call. So ask for a deeper dive into that, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant Thomas Duran, and I'm the Assistant Division Commander of the Custody Bureau's Support Services Division. Support Services includes the Classification Unit, the Programs Unit, and the Custody Alternative Supervision Unit, which operates at the Reentry Resource Center. Today we'll provide a brief overview of programs that are currently being offered in the facilities, but programs is continually evolving, so we'll also give the committee a sense of the direction for programs over the next 3 years. I want to thank Chairwoman Clausen for also providing information on other projects the rehab officers work on in collaboration with other county departments and groups like jail monitors. Included in the report was a snapshot of the inmate population. We review the snapshot daily, and the inmate population is constantly fluctuating. Over the last few years, the overall number of inmates has decreased, and inmates who are housed are either released quickly or remain in custody for an extended amount of time. As a result, our programs unit has been looking for opportunities to provide more in-depth programming that is varied and focuses on treatment and services for the whole person in order to reduce recidivism. An example of a more in-depth educational program we have implemented is the pilot with 5 keys that began this fiscal year. For the first time, Maine Jail in Elmwood started the school year with maximum security inmates enrolled in high school working towards a diploma. This allowed us to provide structured programming to new housing units. The rehabilitation officers worked in collaboration with 5 keys to enroll students during August and September, which increased overall program participation. For the last 6 months, the average inmate program participation has been 26% of the overall inmate population that is housed. Though women are a smaller percentage of the population, they typically take advantage of in-custody programs more than men, and that trend continued for the last 6 months. Though we only have snapshots, we've seen the program participation for maximum security inmates has increased. Pictured on this slide is a list of the overall categories that our structured programming falls into. As we've mentioned, our emphasis is on ensuring any new programs that are added are evidence-based, and the curriculum provides us with a method of monitoring progress. Knowing that many inmates are dealing with not only the trauma associated with incarceration, but also the trauma from earlier in their lives, the programs unit is working to provide the inmate with services and resources that are trauma-informed and provide them with skills to change the direction of their lives and in many instances, to also break the cycle of multi-generational criminal behavior. Inmates who are housed in programming dorms have the opportunity to enroll in electives that are specific to their needs beyond the traditional educational and vocational training. Attached to this report and posted on the Sheriff's website is a list of programs. We're looking to ensure everything is offered in each housing unit and is included, and hope to update the document on our website monthly. As you can see on the slide, we have a number of projects underway and scheduled for the upcoming years. The programs unit has set the goal of increasing inmate participation from our current average of 26% to 40% by 2022. We think this is attainable through the pilot expansion of the Milestone Credits program and by expanding the number of programs that are available. 5 Keys is the recruitment phase for vocational instructors to provide certified training for inmate workers in low security housing. The Sheriff's Office is also working in collaboration with Facilities and Fleet to create a plan for increasing classroom space at Elmwood. We hope to identify a location to construct a programs building with classrooms and vocational training space that's accessible to both male and female inmates. That concludes our formal presentation, and Dr. Patrick Marshall and Melanie Jimenez-Perez are here to answer any additional questions.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I've got one question. Thank you for the report. On package page 28, third paragraph, you say the Sheriff's Office is in the beginning phase of developing an RFP for parenting skill courses, and I just wondered what that timeline looked like now.
Sorry, I have mic challenges. So we currently have a contract through July of this year. So we've already started writing it in hopes to get it released in the next couple of months. We started kind of our process by meeting with First Five. And also we're looking at the Pew MacArthur Foundation to see what are some of the national evidence-based programming curriculum that's out there, so we can kind of use that to inform our process.
So you're thinking 9 months? Somewhere, is that a rough number?
We're hoping to have the new contract in place by August.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. What do you anticipate the funding source being for the additional classroom space?
That is something we are currently in conversations with the county exec's office about.
I'll follow up on that then.
That means we don't have one yet.
We don't have one yet. Then more to come on that, I'm sure. I didn't have additional questions on this particular report. I want to thank the Sheriff's Office again for 3 consecutive reports this afternoon. I appreciate that. And I started this meeting by talking about this balance between safety and justice, and just want to note what's hopefully obvious for all of us, that achieving this balance really requires something from each of us: transparency, a commitment to independent oversight, a willingness to work from the perspective of continuous improvement, and an acknowledgement that we are all on the same team with the same goals. I haven't met all of you individually. I would really welcome the opportunity between this meeting and the next to talk with any of you that would like to dive a little bit deeper and talk about how we can take some actions on this committee this year and really improve a variety of aspects of our public safety and justice system. And I am here as well to support all of you, to support the great work that you're already doing. Interested in a motion to adjourn the next meeting? The next regular meeting is on a Thursday, March 7th at 2 p.m. in the Board of Supervisors chambers. Thank you, Vice Chair Wasserman, for walking me through this meeting. I appreciate that. Meeting is adjourned.